It's Hazel Jarvis. It's the start of October, and to celebrate this gorgeous month, we're going to do a nature journal page. So I'm going to start with a very light pencil drawing. Once I have the basic plan out, I start to add a little bit more detail to the drawing. So I spend quite a bit of time with my drawing. I like to have some berries because they're always nice and dark and they're good to fill in space. I look for different shapes. I want something live, so I'm going to put a squirrel in, and he's basically two eggs. And then I'm going to have an oak leaf. I'm also going to have a little vignette for the October skies and the moon, and I'm going to have a space to write a couple of notes. I'm going to start painting with the Virginia Creeper. Lighten this pencil line a tiny bit more. I'm going to start with yellow 43 and my green 53, and I go to the base of the leaf. I paint in just a little bit, like this. Then I get some clean water on my brush and I just drag that paint out all the way to the edge. Second leaf goes in the same way, pigment at the bottom, clean water, pulling it out. This time though, I'm going to add a tiny bit of yellow to that mix and then go back and add more clean water and pull the leaf out. I'm going to turn the page just a little bit and put in another leaf. So same mixture, yellow and green at the base. This time, however, I'm going to add just a tiny, tiny bit of red to the tip. And to the base. We have to skip a leaf because it's touching one that's still wet. So we'll go to this fifth leaf, put in some colour at the base. So we'll move on to the berries and we'll use a nice purple brown for the stem, and that is 37 and 46. For the berries themselves, I'm going to use a purple made of 66 and 37. So I just paint them in, and sometimes it's nice to leave just a tiny bit of white for a little highlight, even though these berries are themselves very matte. And I can vary that colour mix just a little by adding some burnt sienna or by adding some Van Dyke brown. And I always like to add one that covers the stem somewhere. One of the wonderful things about October is the night sky, so we're going to put in a beautiful harvest moon. We're going to start with 43, our yellow. And then we're just going to bleed in some orange. Next, we move on to these, which are wonderful. These are the seed heads of Morning Glory. And these are a lovely silvery brown made by mixing the lavender 61 and the Van Dyke brown number 47. So you'll start to just paint them in. And I deliberately make them just a tiny bit bigger than they actually are because I want to contrast the size with the Virginia Creeper berries. So I think the beauty of this particular project is that you have lots of things to work on because they're all spaced around the page, and you don't have to worry too much about is something dry, is something wet. You just paint something different. So we'll start with a yellow 43, painting in our first layer on our oak leaf. So you start with a nice big blob of paint at the base. And you're just going to start pulling that colour down the leaf. And then you'll add some more clean water. So there is our oak leaf, first layer, and we have to wait, let it dry, so we'll move on to the squirrel. And this is where you can sort of fine-tune the drawing if you need to. So note he's got one egg for his head and another egg for his body. So I take some lavender and I quickly paint in over all my pencil strokes all over my squirrel, but keeping a little bit of white on his feet and on his hands. And now, unfortunately, just about everything is a little wet, so you know what I'm going to say, wait, step away, take a break, and we'll come back to it in a few minutes. So we now go back for a second pass through the painting. So we're going to put in this missing leaf, nice blob of colour down here. And when we have that colour on our brush, we're going to just knock off a little bit of extra and then we'll paint in the stem. Now for a little touch to the berries, so we'll take in a little bit of darker paint, 46 and maybe 38. And on some of them, we'll just put in a tiny touch just in one corner down at the bottom, just to give them a little bit of extra oomph. For my night sky, I'm going to mix in the indigo and the lavender. I'm going to add a little bit more indigo to that mix, make it a little bit darker, and a tiny bit of black. So here is our night sky. Now we come back to our Morning Glory seed cases, and I'm switching to a smaller brush, a number 2, to give me just a little bit more control. And now we come to the oak leaf. So we're just going to paint in the stem. And we'll paint in some of the brown areas, the brown patches on our leaf. So my acorn leaf looks like this, and I take care to make sure that the splotches aren't all the same size. For our little squirrel, we're going to paint around the eye, give it a little bit more definition, and we're going to paint inside the eye. So now I'm going to take a brown coloured pencil and I'm going to add a little bit to my squirrel just to give him a bit more texture. At this point, our page is nearly done, apart from a few finishing touches. Painting the underside of this leaf just down here, and we'll add a little bit more brown just to the base of this. So with a fine brush, I'm going to go round the oak leaf and paint in just a couple of these curves. And I'm also just going to lightly paint in that main vein. And a couple of these sideways veins. We turn our attention to the squirrel with an HB pencil and we just crisp up his outline a little bit. Nice round ears, round the eyes, give him a little bit more of a nose and a slightly friendlier expression. We're going to go onto his little claws. And I really just suggest them. Give him a white tummy. Round the back, reinforce the pencil. So here is our final project, and I really hope you've enjoyed this, and I can't wait to see what you do.